She left home for a simple errand, just to collect rent, a quick visit, a short conversation. Then she would be back. But hours passed, then days, and the messages that came from her phone didn't sound like her at all. By the time police realized what had happened inside that apartment, it was already too late, and what they uncovered would leave even seasoned investigators shaken.
Loretta Saunders is 26 and was pregnant when she disappeared last week.
The morning of February 13th started like any other. Loretta Saunders stepped out with a plan: visit her apartment, collect overdue rent, and return home. There was nothing unusual about it. No signs of fear. No hint that this routine errand would become the last thing she ever did. Loretta was organized, careful, and deeply connected to the people she loved. She stayed in constant contact with her family and her partner, Yelchin. That's why, when hours passed without a word, something immediately felt wrong. Then came the messages. The first text was strange. "I'm so nervous that I can't even remember my own mother's maiden name." It didn't sound like her. It didn't feel like her. Minutes later, another message arrived. "I'm going to stay at a friend's place tonight. I'll talk to you later." But there was no friend. No explanation. Just silence. As the hours stretched into days, panic began to settle in. Loretta's phone went quiet. Her home remained untouched, her belongings still exactly where she left them. But her car was gone. By the third day, the police were called. Investigators began with the obvious: her last known movements. Surveillance footage showed Loretta entering her apartment building that morning. Calm, focused. Just another task to complete. But what stood out wasn't what they saw. It was what they didn't. There was no footage of her leaving. Inside the apartment, everything looked normal. Too normal. No signs of struggle, no signs of panic. Just a quiet, empty space. The tenants who lived there, Blake Leggett and Victoria Henneberry, were nowhere to be found. They had reportedly left the city days earlier. At first, it seemed like a missing person case with too many unknowns. But then something changed. Loretta's bank card was used. Not once, but multiple times. Security cameras captured a woman making purchases using Loretta's card, but it wasn't Loretta. Another transaction followed. This time, footage revealed someone else sitting behind the wheel of Loretta's car. Again, not her. Hope began to fade, replaced by something far darker. Then came the call. Hundreds of miles away, in Harrow, Ontario, police found Loretta's car parked outside a house. Inside were Blake and Victoria, the same tenants from her apartment. They were arrested immediately. At that point, investigators knew one thing for certain: Loretta hadn't left on her own. Back in Halifax, detectives returned to the apartment building, this time with a sharper focus. They combed through hours of surveillance footage, searching for anything they might have missed. And then, they saw it. A timestamp from the afternoon of February 13th. Blake walked through the building's exit carrying a large hockey bag. It looked heavy, unnaturally heavy. He disappeared outside, then returned shortly after. Minutes later, he came out again, carrying more bags. Then a third time. On the final trip, Victoria joined him. The footage was silent, but what it suggested was deafening. Investigators began to piece together a horrifying possibility: that Loretta had never left that building, because she was carried out. When police searched the suspect's belongings, they found Loretta's phone in Victoria's possession. Her bank cards were with Blake. The evidence was stacking up, but the truth was still just out of reach. Until they unlocked Blake's phone. Inside was a video, a recording from days before Loretta disappeared. Blake and Victoria were arguing, Intoxicated, their words slurred but unmistakable. "You said you want to kill her." The room went cold. Detectives now had something more than suspicion. They had intent. Under pressure, investigators turned their attention to Victoria. They believed she would break first. When they showed her the video, the silence stretched long and heavy. Then finally, she spoke. "He did it. He killed her. He suffocated her with a bag." The motive was as chilling as the crime itself. Money. Loretta had asked them to pay the rent they owed, or move out. Months of tension had built between them. Payments missed, promises broken. By that point, the debt had grown to a point they didn't want to face. So instead of paying, they chose something unthinkable. According to the investigation, Loretta arrived at the apartment and sat down, waiting for them. It was supposed to be a simple conversation, but without warning, Blake attacked her from behind. She fought back, desperately. She tried to escape, tearing through plastic bags as he attempted to suffocate her. She resisted with everything she had. Even as they struggled and fell to the floor, she kept fighting. Until she couldn't anymore. Blake slammed her head against the ground, again and again. Then, when she stopped moving, he wrapped her head and placed her body inside a hockey bag, the same bag seen on surveillance footage. They carried her out of the building, loaded her into the trunk of her own car, and drove away as if nothing had happened. Along the way, they used her bank card, bought food, sent messages from her phone to create the illusion that she was still alive. But the truth was already sealed. Weeks later, after intense questioning, Victoria led police to a remote roadside area. That's where they found Loretta, still inside the bag. The autopsy confirmed what investigators already feared. She had died from suffocation, a slow, violent end that left her no chance to survive. The case shook the entire country. A young woman, pregnant, just months away from graduation, her future filled with plans, with hope, with a life she was rebuilding piece by piece. Gone. Over unpaid rent. In court, both Blake and Victoria initially denied everything. But just before the trial began, everything changed. They submitted an agreed statement of facts, laying out the full sequence of events. Blake pleaded guilty to first-degree murder. Victoria pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. Blake received a life sentence with no chance of parole for 25 years. Victoria also received life, but with eligibility for parole much earlier. For Loretta's family, the outcome brought a mix of relief and devastation. Relief that they wouldn't have to endure a long, painful trial, but devastation that nothing could bring her back. Her mother stood in court, overwhelmed with grief, questioning the meaning of justice. A pregnant daughter taken, a grandchild lost, and a lifetime of pain left behind. Even after sentencing, the story didn't end. The case became part of a much larger conversation, one that Loretta herself had been deeply passionate about. She was studying criminology, focusing her research on missing and murdered Indigenous women. She wanted to raise awareness, to give a voice to those who were often ignored. In a tragic and cruel twist of fate, she became part of the very issue she was trying to fight. Her death, along with others, sparked national attention. Movements grew louder. Demands for justice became impossible to ignore. Eventually, a national inquiry was launched to investigate the systemic crisis affecting Indigenous women across Canada. Loretta's name became more than a headline. It became a symbol. Her family turned their grief into action. Scholarships were created in her honor. Her story continued through documentaries, advocacy, and the voices of those who refused to let her be forgotten. But the loss didn't stop there. Her sibling, deeply affected by the trauma, struggled in the years that followed. Addiction, grief, and pain became intertwined, leading to another heartbreaking loss within the family. A reminder that the consequences of violence don't end with one life. They ripple outward, touching everyone. Today, Loretta Saunders is remembered not just for how she died, but for who she was. A woman rebuilding her life, a student chasing a dream, a future mother filled with hope, and someone who believed that even one voice could make a difference. In her own words, written in her thesis, "My story isn't unique. Thousands of girls go through the exact same things. Through this project, I hope to help educate people, open their eyes, and give hope that real change is possible." Her voice still echoes, and her story refuses to be forgotten.